This dude literally called into Fox and Friends this morning and was shocked, just absolutely appalled by the fact that any women across the country would dare vote differently than their husbands behind their back. And then he took the stage in North Carolina a few hours later and was complaining about how much he has to protect women across the country and how he always gets attacked for just protecting women. And you know, as VP Harris says, women don't need you to protect them, they need you to trust them to make their own decisions in the doctor's office or even in the voting booth, decisions independently from their husbands or from the government reaching in. And this speaks to a broader point. Donald Trump has been absolutely botching his closing argument over the past few days to past few weeks. You know, the final stretch, the final 7 days of the election really matters more than the months leading up to it, because that's when all of the undecided voters begin to pay attention. You and I have likely been locked in on our voting decision for the past few months, but I actually have friends that just decided this week. And I didn't understand how common this was until I talked to some of my younger friends, some 22-year-olds, 23-year-olds who didn't know much about either candidate and made a decision based on what LeBron James said, or made a decision based on what Taylor Swift said. This is not a joke. This is real stuff that happens. And going back to the point, Donald Trump is botching the closing argument. Whether you are Latino or Puerto Rican, or you are a Black American or Jewish American or Muslim American, I have something for you, because Donald Trump has likely offended you in the past week, just in the past week. So with 3 days to go, we have no time to waste. I'm going to break down Donald Trump's closing arguments, or lack thereof, and compare them a little bit to VP Harris's closing arguments. What has she been talking about over the past few days? Because she did hold a press conference just this morning. So let's start off with this clip of Donald Trump's rally in North Carolina today. Clips of WWE that he's not even in. And I think this perfectly encapsulates, it's a perfect microcosm of the way that MAGA has completely destroyed American politics. For some people, Donald Trump calling his enemies nicknames, that's the deepest they engage with politics. That is their only political engagement. You and I are talking about the Chips and Science Act and how tariffs have terrible implications for American consumers. We're actually talking about economics. The people at this rally want to see just this. They want to see exactly what I just showed you, and he is the entertainer. And this is only furthered by what Donald Trump says on stage. The first thing that he begins talking about is how Donald Trump is going to bring a 1929 style depression. And if any of you guys are invested in the stock market, dude, the stocks are hitting all-time highs lately. Yes, it was down Thursday and Friday, but the stocks are literally crushing all-time highs. Let's take a look at this clip of Donald Trump basically begging for there to be an economic crash.
If Kamala wins, you are 3 days away from the start of a 1929-style economic depression. I believe that. We have a lot of great analysts. Scott Bessent is one. He's one of the smartest guys on Wall Street. I call him 182, 184, double her IQ, like double, maybe triple. But they say the only reason the stock market is doing good is because they all think Trump is going to be elected. So I believe that's true.
Not true. The stock market has been posting all-time highs since we recovered from COVID in 2022, 2023. Look at Trump's face right here, number one. But number two, Donald Trump keeps calling for this once-in-a-generation crash within the markets, but we already had that under Trump's administration. That COVID dip was probably the once-in-a-generation crash. I don't know if we'll get something like that for a few more decades.
I believe it. No, but you have a lot of them. You have this Scott is one of the hottest guys. I hardly know him. I don't know him. But he writes all the time. He thinks that they think that Trump is going to win, and every time we have a good day.
Scott is one of the hottest guys, apparently. And I have some new theories about Donald Trump ever since his stunt last night where he was playing around with the mic for 10 seconds, only a few weeks after he was talking about Arnold Palmer's junk. And really quickly, I got this comment the other day. I've been watching you for a while now, but I didn't realize I was not subscribed. I am now voting blue. So please, make sure you're subscribed below. But this is Donald Trump's closing argument. Here's Donald Trump basically thanking God that the job numbers came in lower than expected. Thanking God that Americans are having trouble finding jobs this month.
Well, wait a minute. You just saw, you were going to go over it in a second, the worst numbers I've ever seen. How good was that? To get those numbers 4 days before the vote was, thank you very much, sir. Thank you. Thank you, thank you, sir. Now, You would have liked that on one of your races, wouldn't you? But no, to get those numbers, we had the worst numbers.
Okay, this is another clip that perfectly encapsulates the MAGA movement. You guys can probably see where I'm going with this because it's incredibly obvious, but Donald Trump says in this clip he is putting his own electoral chances over the American people. He has done this time and time again, whether we point to Langford's border bill, which Donald Trump instructed Congress to shoot down for his own political gain, whether we're talking about Donald Trump trying to pressure Mike Pence into certifying his election results, or at least throwing it back to the House so it was ambiguous. Time and time again, we see these examples of Donald Trump putting his own political ambitions over actual American workers. For example, the job numbers came in lower than expected. We've had great job numbers for a few months. Inflation is going down. Real wages are going up. The economy is doing well. But yes, over the last month, a lot of people lost jobs in the tech sector in particular. So Donald Trump is celebrating that. He is celebrating the loss of jobs. And he is celebrating a bad month in the American economy. He is literally thanking God.
How good was that? To get those numbers 4 days.
He says, look at these bad numbers. How good was that?
In a second, the worst numbers I've ever seen. How good was that?
The worst numbers I've ever seen. How good was that? Literally, Trump is thanking God that Americans aren't able to get jobs. And here is VP Harris.
First of all, let me make it very clear that I intend to earn the vote of everyone, and I don't take anyone's vote for granted. And my highest priority as president will be to bring down the cost, because to that point, look, I know the cost of groceries is too high still. Everyone knows it. And so my plan includes what we're going to do in terms of taking on corporate price gouging and having the first ever national ban on corporate price gouging on groceries. My plan includes addressing the issue of affordable housing, including for first-time home buyers, giving them a $25,000 down payment assistance so they can just get their foot in the door. My plan includes addressing the needs of parents, in particular young parents, which is why I will expand the child tax credit to $6,000 for the first year of their child's life, which helps pay for everything from childcare to a crib and a car seat. My plan includes what we're going to do to invest in our small businesses, including increasing tax breaks for small businesses. And overall, my plan, which is about building an opportunity economy, has been reviewed by leading economists in our country, from Goldman Sachs to 32 Nobel laureates.
Yep.
All whom have said that my economic plan actually will strengthen America's economy.
That is a closing argument right there. Notice how she repeatedly said, my plan will do X, will do Y, will have this effect on this group of people, because she actually has plans and then target groups that those plans could affect. For example, her $6,000 child tax credit is aimed at people trying to build families. It actually incentivizes people to build families, and it allows mothers or fathers or whatever sort of guardian to put more food on the table. And meanwhile, Donald Trump's closing argument is not even knowing who he's running against.
Crooked Joe Biden. They don't call him Crooked Joe for a reason. I mean, it's a reason they call him that.
MeidasTouch points out on Twitter, it's a few days before the election, and Trump still doesn't know who he's running against. Back up to this clip. Yeah, VP Harris absolutely killed this, and she is really getting good at delivering her closing argument. She's a prosecutor, so of course she knows how to deliver an argument, but doing that on national television on the campaign trail is a different battle that VP Harris has really gotten good at over the past few months. Because I'm not going to lie, 4 years ago, she wasn't nearly as polished as she is now. We can all admit that. Here's Donald Trump just absolutely baffled by the fact that a wife would dare vote differently than her husband. How dare her?
And she's going to look back on that and she's going to cringe that, did I really say that? It doesn't say much for her relationship, but I'm sure she has a great relationship. But the wives and husbands, I don't think that's the way they deal. I mean, can you imagine a wife not telling a husband who she's voting for? Do you ever hear anything like that? Even if you have if you had a bad relationship, you're going to tell your husband, it's a ridiculous ad. It's so stupid. She's going to look back someday and just say, did I really make that? You know, they're into this thing.
Apparently, it's okay for Donald Trump to repeatedly cheat on Melania, to lie about who he's sleeping with, or lie about how faithful he is. But a wife hiding who they're voting for, that's just a step too far. But do you guys remember this viral photo of Donald Trump taking a peek just to make sure Melania is actually voting for him, just to make sure. This does speak to the broader argument that MAGA conservatives, not all conservatives, not all Republicans, but MAGA Republicans in particular, the Donald Trump, Charlie Kirk strain of Republican, they don't want their wives or girlfriends to have any sort of independence whatsoever. And Donald Trump said, he was complaining today that he has to constantly be protecting women, and he was saying, they attack me because I'm always protecting you guys.
So what happens, I came out and I said, is there a crowd like this is a big crowd. I said, is there any woman that would be offended by the fact that I said, I am going to protect you as your president? No hands. So I had like 20,000 people. I didn't have one hand. I didn't have one hand, not one hand. Well, there was one woman that did say it. You know, this woman's very smart. She said, was that Pelosi? Who the hell is that? You are a smart one. Wow. No, well, somebody else just said it was a woman who transitioned, you know.
These people literally have two jokes. It's either about the Pelosi's or it's either about transgender people, but Donald Trump could say anything in his rallies and his crowd would agree with him. He would say, don't raise your hand if you guys are all pieces of shit and you want me to impregnate your wives, and nobody would raise their hand because it's Donald Trump saying that. And now here is how VP Harris is speaking about women in an interview with CNN just now. This just popped in my feed, an impromptu interview with VP Harris done by CNN. And it's super interesting because Donald Trump and Kamala Harris are both talking about women a lot over the past few days, over the last few days of the campaign, but they're talking about them in very different ways. Only one of them is botching their closing argument.
Do you believe that female voters, women, will make the difference in this election?
I believe all Americans are going to make the difference. And I intend to be a president for all Americans. I am working to earn the vote of all Americans, regardless of their gender, race, or geographic location. Because, listen, I think part of the issue at play right now is we need leadership in this country that recognizes the vast majority of us have so much more in common than what separates us. I think this is part of the reason that so many people are voting for me who may have formerly voted for my opponent, because they're just exhausted with the...
Yo, that is a super, super good closing argument right there. I mean, just the way she said it, the way she's trying to bring people together, the way she didn't even take the bait and only talk about women. She said, I need to earn the vote of every American. You know, if Donald Trump was asked that same question, he would say, the women love me, I'm gonna win the women. He would just lie about it. And I want to go back to what I was saying earlier about how nice it is to have a candidate who can actually lay out policies, actually lay out her plans. And I want to show you this TikTok that I posted the other day that went decently viral. It's a clip of my Newsmax interview when I start debating this Gen Zer on Kamala's policies, and I think it really is a good clip to show Kamala's closing argument. Why didn't he do that his first 4 years though? Why didn't he already do that? I can put the same question
because
back
he
to
was
you.
actually creating a foundation
in 2018, the largest tax cut in modern American history.
And
he created such a good foundation that 92% of his advisors turned on him. All of his closest generals turned on him. He lost his vice president. What kind of person builds a foundation that they have to completely restart fresh their next administration? I mean, Brylan, can you tell me why Mike Pence isn't his VP anymore?
Adam, I appreciate you asking the questions, but I'm going to take the reins back since we're the hosts.
But also, I want to respond to something Brylan said really quickly, because I was at Trump's Madison Square Garden rally. I go to these rallies and I have very respectful conversations with Trump's biggest supporters, and there is one common theme among all of them, and it's that none of them can name a single economic policy from Trump. So when it comes to VP Harris, she has a housing plan for people like Brylan and I, first-time homebuyers, so we get a tax incentive. When it comes to the child tax credit, a $6,000 child tax credit, not a giveaway, but an incentive for people to build families. Also an incentive for small businesses to start up with a tax deduction. And I don't know if this is loud, but I'd like to pose the question to Brylan. Can you name a single economic policy that Trump has for Gen Z? Alright, spoiler alert, Brylan doesn't have a policy. That full video is up on my YouTube, but let's go back to what's going on the campaign trail today and over the past few days. Trump continues to botch his closing argument. I mean, he gave this speech in North Carolina today, and he literally spent a minute of it just talking about Hannibal Lecter and his genetics. I want you to listen to how unhinged this is. Asen on Twitter says, here's the full clip of Trump basically saying he's an absolute genius for bringing up Hannibal Lecter during the campaign and appearing to attribute that genius to his genetics.
It's an army of gangs and criminal migrants from prisons and jails, from insane asylums and mental institutions. You know, when I say insane asylums and then I say Dr. Hannibal Lecter, does anybody know? They go crazy. They say, oh, he brings up these names out of, well, that's genius, right? Dr. Hannibal Lecter. There's nobody worse than him. Silence of the Lambs. Who the hell else would even remember that? I have a great memory. But they always hit me. I don't bring it up too much because I have to take such a... He brought up Hannibal Lecter. What does that have to do with this? What is it? Well, it has everything to do with it, right? That's who we're allowing into our country. And we don't want to allow that into our country. So,
okay, again, if you guys don't know, when Donald Trump thinks people are seeking asylum, he thinks that means they are coming from insane asylums. He doesn't know there are two different definitions. Just like when he says that people are coming over here with credit cards in their pockets, he's talking about people applying for visas. He doesn't understand these terms. But I mean, what he's doing, I guess, could be clever if you know that you're appealing to the lowest common denominator in the country. So if you know that you're appealing to the dumbest people in the country, and you can play this game of word association, you can trick the average American into thinking that immigrants equal Hannibal Lecter. So he's evil. It's not clever, it's evil.
So I've done something for you that I haven't done in 20 speeches. I brought up Dr. Hannibal Lecter, and we're allowing him in our country. You watch these fake people will say, again, he brought up Hannibal Lecter. It has absolutely nothing to do. You know, I do the weave, right? The weave, it's genius. You bring up Hannibal Lecter.
When is he going to talk about the policy? We watched a 1-minute clip with VP Harris. We watched VP Harris speak for 1 minute, and she laid out like 8 different policies and who they're going to affect exactly. We can sit here and watch clip after clip of Donald Trump, and it's just tiresome. It's tiresome at this point. Donald Trump goes on for 1 more minute there, but I'd rather show you this clip of Donald Trump talking about Puerto Rico this morning because it's pretty disgusting. Take a listen.
Madison Square Garden told me they've never seen anything like it in the history of Madison Square Garden. There was love. And it was a great triumph. And by the way, totally peaceful. There were no riots. The police were great, New York's finest.
Why do you have to clarify that there are no riots every single time you hold a rally?
But Madison Square Garden, it was unbelievable. Well, I guess somebody put on a comedian, and he joked. He was a comedian, he joked. He mentioned Puerto Rico. And all of a sudden, the Democrats, and they are good at this stuff, by the way. That's the only thing they're good at. They're no good at policy. They're no good at government. They're good at other things. They're very good at cheating. But other than that, they're not good at anything. So let me just so they come up, and a comedian put in early in the show, as a filler, in all fairness.
The way this guy refuses to take accountability is absolutely disgusting. The clip's not over, but he said, somebody decided to put a comedian on stage. Dude, you're the one running the campaign. You are the CEO of the campaign, essentially, if you want to make that analogy. The buck stops with you. When somebody's speaking, the onus is on you to either vet it. Even if it's not you vetting it personally, you should have your advisors or somebody on your team vetting every single speech, and we know that happened. We know that they vetted Tony Hinchcliffe's speech, and they just let it through. Also, when Donald Trump says the Democrats aren't good at policy, we've already demonstrated throughout this video that only one side talks about policy. I played a 1-minute clip of VP Harris. She blew Trump out of the water regarding policy, and I have to debunk Trump when he says the Democrats are only good at cheating. Why weren't you able to demonstrate that cheating in any courts? How come your own judges that you appointed rejected those cases and said, we can't flip states based on no evidence?
I guess he said some joke. I haven't heard the joke, but he said some joke. And he mentioned Puerto Rico. All of a sudden, they come out with something about Puerto Rico. Nobody's been better to Puerto Rico than me. I saved Puerto Rico when they had some of the worst hurricanes, really bad. I brought in the hospital ship, the Mercy. I brought in this massive hospital ship.
He's literally doing the, I didn't know the guy. I don't even know the guy. This is a man that could commit a murder and be seen on camera, and he would say, I didn't even know that place existed. I was never even there. And it doesn't seem to be working. This article reads, Trump's Puerto Rico fallout is spreading like wildfire in Pennsylvania. Evidence of the backlash was immediate on Monday. Donald Trump has a serious Puerto Rico problem, but not in Puerto Rico, in Pennsylvania. Many voters who are Latino or Puerto Rican Rico and the state are furious about the racist and demeaning comments delivered at the Trump rally. Some say their dismay is giving Kamala Harris a new opening to win over the state's Latino voters. That's all she needs is an opening to win over the nearly 500,000 Pennsylvanians of Puerto Rican descent. And I know a lot of people watching are saying, how could people just be realizing that Donald Trump is like this now? But remember, earlier in the video, I clarified that a lot of people don't start paying attention to anything political until the very last week, until they see it all over their feeds or all over their algorithms. And who could blame them? You and I, we are nerds. We are uniquely nerdy about this stuff. Most people don't want to scroll through and read about Adam Schiff's breakfast every day. They want to read about other stuff. Evidence of the backlash was immediate on Monday. A nonpartisan Puerto Rican group drafted a letter urging its members to oppose Trump on Election Day. Other Puerto Rican voters were lighting up WhatsApp chats with reactions to the vulgar display and raising it in morning conversations at their bodegas. The question here is now, can VP Harris fully capitalize on this opening? Some are planning to protest Trump's rally Tuesday in Allentown, a majority Latino city with one of the largest Puerto Rican populations in the state. Not to mention, the arena Trump is speaking at is located in the middle of the city in its Puerto Rican neighborhood. I want to show you this clip of Donald Trump again tripling down on the idea that RFK Jr. is going to make America healthy again. Just so bizarre and scary, honestly.
We will make America healthy again. RFK Jr. is going to be in charge of that. Is that correct? He'll be there.
What is Donald Trump talking about in this clip in particular? Listen.
And I didn't know it was such a dangerous profession. Being president is a very dangerous profession. Who would have thought? But if you look at race car drivers, I have a lot of race car driver friends. You know, I own a job down the road in a place called Charlotte. Have you ever heard of it?
He owns a job down the road. I don't know what this dude is talking about, but I will leave you with that, as Trump is also delivering his closing arguments and leaving the nation with absolute hogwash. If you enjoyed the video, drop a like, subscribe, have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace out.